أما بعد فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى وقوله الحق وهو أصدق القائلين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تدخلوا بيوتا غير بيوتكم حتى تستأنسوا وتسلموا على أهلها ذلكم خير لكم لعلكم تذكرون صدق الله العلي العظيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Verse that I recited today is verse number 27 from Surah Noor. We've been doing the tafsir of it. In the next three verses from 27 to 29, these three verses are about the manners of entering someone's house, and it is indeed a prelude to the verse number 30. In this verse, he says, "O you who have faith, do not enter houses other than your own until you have announced your arrival and greeted their occupant." So it was a practice which was not being practiced according to the laws laid down by Islam, or actually even how a society, a civilized society would practice such a thing. Entering someone's house, how would you act that? So this was something which was not being practiced at that time, and therefore these ayat were revealed. The word which is used in this ayah is ista'anis, or the word which is being used is tasta'anisu, meaning is to seek permission and to announce before entering. According to narrations, this can be achieved through the name of Allah. For example, you might have seen this practice before you go in. You say, Ya Allah, so that you can announce that you're coming in. If there are any na-mahram, they can go ahead and cover themselves. Or by saying Salamun Alaikum out loud, so that they're aware of your entrance, and therefore they're ready if they're not in a position which they should be in front of a na-mahram. So the word tasta'nisu is derived from the word uns, alif noon sin, and we are aware of this word uns, which shows mercy and compassion. So in this seeking permission and announcing your arrival, you're also doing it with mercy and compassion. A person asked Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, should I seek permission before entering the house of my mother, even if she lives there alone? Prophet replied by saying, yes, and for obvious reasons, that you do not want to walk in the house, even of your own mother, who's mahram to you, in a situation where she might not be properly dressed, or in a situation where, someone might be doing something that you don't want to show others. And therefore, he said, even in the house of your own mother, when you're going in, knock before you enter, announce before you enter, seek permission before you enter. In another tradition, it says one must seek permission 3 times before entering, to give household members time to get ready. And of course, in this case, if one was, in need, for example, you say, well, this is the rule of thumb, this is qaida kulli, universal law, and therefore I have to abide with it. No, if there was a time when the house was on fire, or there was some other emergency, then you do not need permission to knock on the door. You just go in and you take care of whatever is needed. So this is just in a situation where it's non-emergency situation. And so whenever Prophet wanted to enter someone's house, he would never stand right in front of the house. Rather, he would stand on the side of it, and then he would knock the door, or in this case, that we are going to someone's house, we would ring the bell. Stand on the side of. These are the etiquettes that Islam wants to teach you. Why? So that when you are standing in front of the house, when the door is open, you can see inside all the way through. Maybe there might be someone sitting in a way, or something going on that you should not take an eye, you should not put an eye to, and therefore stand on to the side when you knock on the door or when you ring the bell. The messages are very clear from this particular ayah, that Ahl Iman take directions pertaining to the affairs of their life, daily life. The action that we must perform in our daily life. Ahl Iman, where do they take their instructions from? They take their instructions from the revelation has been revealed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why in the beginning of the ayah it says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu. Oh, those who have brought faith, do this. So Ahl Iman are the ones who seek the instructions from Quran and do not take it from anywhere else. Secondly, safety and freedom of inhabitants must be protected. That's why I said, La tadkhulu, do not walk in. And it's sigha it is being, it's sigha nahi, which is telling you not to do this. So therefore it brings about the wujub. It says stay away from being falsely blamed, because if you were to go ahead and walk in, people will be blaming you if something had to happen in that house, for example. So stay away from these false blames, even if you have not done something. Mere fact that you walked in without announcement, it might be blamed onto you. That's why it says la tadkhulu, and towards the end it says dhalikum khairun lakum. It will be for your betterment. If the door of a house is open, it doesn't mean that you can enter. Yes, there's an invitation, but you still knock. And you gotta make those exceptions in this regard where these permissions are not needed. Behavior of mu'mineen with one another should be based on love and respect. So that's why the words that are being used here is tasta'nisu wa tusallimu. Tasta'nisu, again, coming from this compassion, this uns, and tusallimu, coming from salutations and sending and conveying your salam. And it does not make anyone small or less if you go ahead and say salam before anyone else says salam to you. Avoid all actions that can be cause of breaking the boundaries of modesty and hijab. When you enter, say salam. Saying it first, as I said before, does not lower your status, even if it's coming from an elderly towards someone who's younger. This also is done as a method to preach, as a method to do tarbiyat of those who are young. So if you keep on waiting for them to say salam to you, they'll never learn, and therefore they will not be saying salam. So it is a method that as an adult, yes, you expect youngsters to say salam to you first. But if you go ahead and say salam to someone, you have taken lead in that which is mustahab. It is now wajib upon them to reply back to you. Regarding and considering the rights of others is the root of the human prosperity. The way you can reach this sa'adat and sa'adat-e-ukhrawi, sa'adat in the hereafter, is through these etiquettes that you portray and show in this life. Manners and etiquettes taught by religion are same as what nature demands, which are naturally needed. They must be reminded over and over. That's why at the end of the ayat it says, tadhakkarun, to remind them, because we tend to forget. Insan comes from, there are a couple of roots of the word insan. It could come from nisyan, which means forgetfulness. So insan forgets a lot, and therefore it is a need to remind him over and over. The next ayah, verse number 28 says, فَإِن لَمْ تَجِدُوا فِيهَا أَحَدًا فَلَا تَدْخُلُوهَا حَتَّى يُؤْذَنَ لَكُمْ وَإِنْ قِيلَ لَكُمْ ارْجِعُوا فَارْجِعُوا وَهُوَ أَزْكَى لَكُمْ وَاللَّهُ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ عَلِيمٌ. It said, but if you do not find anyone in them, remember the previous ayah was saying, knock before you enter. This ayah is saying, even if there's no one, if you don't find anyone in them, do not enter them until you are given permission. So you keep on knocking, no one is answering, does not mean that you can now enter because nobody is answering. That means no one's home, so you can go in. No, it's still, you do not have the permission to go in. And if you're told from inside, please go away, turn back, nicely obviously, then turn back. That is more decent for you. Allah knows best what you do. So there might be times when you hear the voice from inside, but you will turn out and say, well, how bad manners do these people have that they have rejected a guest that has come to their door. We'll explain how Shariat looks upon it. Messages that we understand from this ayah: entering into someone's house without their permission is haram. So there you go. It's the ayat of Quran. It says, La tadkhulu. La tadkhulu is nahi. Whenever there's wujub or nahi in amr or nahi in Quran, that reflects on wujub and the hurmat in Sharia. And therefore it says, La tadkhulu, la tadkhuluha. Therefore entering someone's house without their permission, according to Islam and Quran, is haram. Entering requires definitive permission. Hatta yudhana lakum. Wait until you are given the permission. Do not take lead in going in. And as soon as you see the signs of annoyance, you must return. إِذَا قِيلَ لَكُمْ. If they were to tell you, irji'u, return, please go back, farji'u, come back. Do not persist on lingering around the house saying that, what have I done? Why don't you let me in? And so on and so forth. Is standing behind the houses. And this was something which was happening in the time of Rasulullah. And I will explain that towards the end when I mention the context of revelation. Is standing behind the houses of people is not allowed after you have been told to return. Not accepting an uninvited guest is allowed. I did not invite you, but therefore I do not have to accept you. So unless obviously there was a need, there was other situations, but from the Sharia aspect, because a lot of time people try to bring out the Sharia aspect. What does Islam has to say about it? What does Quran has to say about it? As if everything is in Quran, as if everything is mentioned in this book, which is 600 pages. No, not everything will be found in this one. A lot of these things are taught to us by the actions of Rasulullah. Simple answer to the one who always looks for an answer through Quran. Ask them, do you pray 5 times a day? Yes. Can you mention the method of praying through Quran? No. Do you fast during the month of Ramadan? Yes. Can you mention the things which we must avoid while we're fasting during the month of Ramadan? Some of them maybe, but not all of them. Have you performed Hajj? Have you gone for Hajj? Do you plan on going for Hajj? Yes. Can you derive all of the laws pertaining to Hajj from this book of Quran? No, you won't. Where do we learn that from? We learn that from the practice of Rasulullah. We learn that from the actions of Rasulullah. And therefore, you got to keep both Quran and the acts of Rasul both together in order to go ahead and derive these laws. So not accepting an uninvited guest is allowed according to this ayah. Let's accept the excuse of the people of the house and not consider it dishonor for ourselves when they're saying go away. Quietly walk away, as this ayat of Quran is saying that it is huwa aska lakum. This is pure for you. Do not be offended if your request is turned down. It might be the case that the owner of the house isn't ready to receive you. They might be in a situation, their house might not be etiquette, it might not be clean. There could be many situations where they cannot let you in. Because if you were to come in, you will leave the house in a state where you will be doing backbiting. So they're actually protecting you from a lot of other things. Therefore, except when they say, don't come in and leave. Why? Later part of the ayat says, it warned us rather, Wallahu bima ta'maluna alim. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is aware of what you do. Knowledge of Allah about our actions is an element of either encouragement or threat. So when we know that Allah knows everything, we know that Allah is watching over us, we know that He's, nadir upon our actions and our aqwal and our sayings, it gives us 2 things. Either encourages us or threatens us. Encouragement, when you do something good, and it goes unnoticed by the people. So, you did something here which was brilliant. Tremendous, required a lot of appreciation. But nobody noticed it. Knowing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala noticed it, knowing that He did not miss your action, knowing that He was seeing, He was watching over what you did, you don't feel so bad. So that gives you encouragement. Yeah, I did this action, but 100 people over here didn't see it. But when Allah saw it, isn't that more than Him seeing it, and then let alone these, other than these 100 people? No, it's enough. But how do we convince ourselves of that? That's very difficult. We want others to see our good deeds. That gives us more encouragement than knowing that Allah is seeing our good deeds, and that should be the biggest encouragement for all. I'm not going to do this anymore because nobody really notices me. I'm not going to do this work. I'm not going to give more towards this cause because I don't really get appreciation. Appreciation is good. We should not neglect appreciation because Allah is watching, so why do we need to appreciate someone? No, that should not be from our end. We should still go ahead and appreciate people. But when you yourself are doing something good, let it be known that Allah has seen it, and that should be enough encouragement for you. On the other hand, we should be threatened. When you do something wrong, even if nobody over here saw it, I got lucky, nobody saw me doing that. No, Allah saw you. That should be threatening enough for you. That should be discouraging enough for you not to go ahead and repeat that action again. Salawat Biji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I'm going through these ayat very quickly. Verse number 29 says, لَيْسَ عَلَيْكُمْ جُنَاحٌ أَن تَدْخُلُوا بُيُوتًا غَيْرَ مَسْكُونَةٍ فِيهَا مَتَاعٌ لَكُمْ وَاللَّهُ يَعْلَمُ مَا تُبْدُونَ وَمَا تَكْتُمُونَ. First ayah said, do not enter. Second ayah said, don't enter until you're given the permission. This ayah says there will be no sin upon you in entering without announcing those houses which are uninhabited. Those are غير مسكونة, where there is nobody living wherein. and have goods belonging to you. Allah knows whatever you disclose and whatever you conceal. Now, if you take this ayah and you don't read if you just knew Arabic or you knew you could read the translation of it. The translation says, there will not be any sin upon you to enter a house without announcing, which is not inhabited, there's nobody living there, and there were goods in it for you. Right away, I get the idea, it's talking about a house, just left alone for years and nobody's living there. It still belongs to someone. I can go in there and whatever goods are there, I can go ahead and take them. That's why it's very difficult to understand some of these verses. No, that's not the permission which is being given over here. You got to look at the context. You got to understand the words, Arabic words, one by one. Public places is what is being discussed over here. It says public places have a different account and rule about entering as opposed to someone's residence. So over here when Allah says, there's no sin upon you if you enter a house without announcing, it's talking about public places. And therefore, entering these places doesn't require permission. What are such places? Masajid is one of them. Hotels, shops, schools, universities, restaurants, offices, the doors for which are open for public, you don't have to seek permission to enter. Do you need to seek permission before you enter this masjid? Does anyone stand over there and give you permission to enter this masjid? No. It's the house of Allah. It belongs to every single person over here equally. So therefore, you do not need permission to enter into the house of Allah. So going to places, public places, without any benefit, but this is where the point is. He said, yeah, it is allowed for you to enter these places if there's benefit for you. But if there's no benefit for you, the same rule applies, which we discussed in the first two ayat. Don't go. Just simply don't go. You should not enter unless there's some sort of manfi'at and benefit for you. What does that mean? We'll mention that. So going to these places without any benefit for you is not allowed according to the verse which says أَن تَدْخُلُوا بُيُوتًا غَيْرَ مَسْكُونَ فِيهَا مَتَاعٌ لَكُمْ. So there should be something for you there, otherwise you going there, it's not allowed. So for example, benefits of masjid is ibadat. That's the benefit that you come to masjid. You perform the ibadat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What better place to go for ibadat than the masjid? So right away there is mata'un lakum. This is where fiha mata'un lakum. Schools, you go there for education. So there's mata'un lakum over there. Shops or markets, you go there for what? So that you can buy merchandise. There's mata'un lakum for you over there. Restaurants, you go there to eat. That's mata'un lakum over there. And then various other, other offices that you go for various different reasons. There's something for you over there, and that is the reason you go. So from this ayat we understand, it's not talking about those houses which are still personal residences of some people, but they have left it because they've gone on vacation, for example, for a month. No, you cannot enter into those houses and go ahead and take, which is mata'un lakum, beneficial for you. That's not what is being discussed over here. That's how, this is just a very small example, how some of the verses of Quran are taken out of context. When the verses of Quran are taken out of context, this is where we run into trouble, into using these verses for our own benefit. People start interpreting these verses, what they believe it means, and therefore you start causing chaos. That's why when Prophet had explained this Quran, even when he was leaving, he made sure that he gave the message clear to everyone that I'm leaving behind you two weighty things, not one weighty thing. Both of these weighty things should be accompanied together, otherwise you will not be able to benefit. And Quran is one of them, and my itrat is the other one. Quran itself will not be beneficial for you if you took Ahl Bayt out of them. And we saw the example of that in the Battle of Siffin. What were these people holding on their banners? They were holding Quran, yet they were standing up against Amirul Mu'mineen. The army of Muawiyah is standing with Quran. They're holding the paper, pages of Quran, and that's why Muslimin were fooled into falling into this trap, and they did not go along with this war, and they actually betrayed Amirul Mu'mineen. This is where we understand, even in those early days, those people who had seen Rasulullah, those people who had taken this wahi and heard it firsthand, had trouble understanding, let alone people after 1400 years. Salawat Biji Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. So when you're entering these public places, make sure you keep your benefit understandable, and so you enter because of that. When entering public places, Allah Keep Allah in your perspective and remind yourself that Allah knows what's on your mind and what are you doing. That's why this ayah said, Wallahu ya'lamu ma tubduna wa ma taktumun. Allah knows best what you are hiding and what you are showing and what you're concealing. So whatever is in your mind, yes, these people might not know. The people in the masjid might not know what you're here for. People at the shops and the markets might not know what you're there for. In restaurants, people might not know what you're there for. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what you are there for, and therefore take heed from that. There's no doubt that humans have two-dimensional life, a dimension which is individual and the another one which is the social. This is the social life that we are in. So therefore, they have two types of lifestyles, personal and public. No, this is not hypocrisy. Hypocrisy is something else, where you say something, believe something in your house, and you say something outside of your house. You're praising someone outside, but when you go inside the house, you're not praising that person anymore. No, this is different. You have two lifestyles, one which is the personal lifestyle, second which is the social and the public lifestyle. So humans are bound to dress modestly when out in the public, and it is understandable. It is wajib upon them, and they cannot keep the same dress code throughout the day. You think I wear all this thing all day long? Simple example in front of you? No. I come here, so I dress up this way. You go to your work, you dress accordingly. So you can't keep that dress code 24 hours. It's very difficult. Then we look at towards the ladies. They have to put on more clothing than you and I do. There's hijab on it, there's chadar on it, there's all these things that do you think they keep those things on for 24 hours? It'll be very difficult. So it'll actually make their life very difficult. And that's why for their comfort in their houses when they're resting, they do not have to observe those things. And therefore there's one, personal lifestyle. Second is the social lifestyle. Yeah, when you walk into the social realm, you're dressed one way. When you are in your house, in your personal, place of residence, you're going to be dressing differently. So he wants to be free. This person wants to be free from these limitations of the day in public and rest with his family, discuss his personal affairs, benefit from his freedom to whatever extent is possible in this boundary that he has for himself. For this reason, he closes his doors to public and cuts himself off from the society for a little while. Then he goes back to being a social animal again by mingling with the people on the next day. So this free environment that he has created for himself should be respected by the society, because everyone has created this environment for themselves. When you do this for someone else, you have the similar environment for you, and you don't want anyone trespassing the same similar environment. And this is a natural demand, and therefore Islam also gives permission for it. In fact, Islam went to the extent that it explained some of the etiquettes and manners and the rules and regulations about it. We read in a hadith that Abu Sa'id, one of the companions of Rasulullah, came to his house, knocked on the door, asking for the permission to enter. Prophet came out and said to him, don't stand in front of the door when you knock. And then he showed it through himself whenever he went to someone's house, how he knocked and how he said salam before entering the house. In another tradition, we read that our Prophet, came and knocked on the door as he used to do every single day on the door of his daughter, Janab Fatima Zahra, Salamullahi alayha. And I might not have the time to go in the details of why this verse was revealed, but I'll explain it very quickly, that Prophet married. Before I go to the story about Janab Fatima, I have 4 or 5 minutes in my hand, that when Prophet married Zainab bint Jahish, he invited a lot of people over his house for walima. Walima which is mustahab to do. And so people ate, and slowly they started to leave. But Anas, who was Prophet's, one who lived with Prophet, Prophet's servant, asked to remove the tablecloth when people had left, as usually you do. You start wrapping things up. But he saw that there were 3 people who were sitting there still discussing. And they were talking. Prophet went out, and then he came back inside, and he saw these 3 people were still sitting there, and they were still chatting and talking. This is where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed this ayah from Surah Ahzab, verse number 53. He said, "O you who have faith, do not enter Prophet's houses for a meal until you are granted permission." So Prophet invited you, come in. Without hanging around for it to be readied. It's going to be ready in a couple of hours. Why are you still circling around? And then, but enter when you are invited, and disperse when you have taken your meal. without cozying up for chats, this and that. Such conduct of your part, on your part, offends Rasulullah. He is ashamed of saying this to you. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not ashamed of making the laws clear for you. So this was the context why it was revealed. And also people would come and ask, knocking on the door of Rasulullah for the daily necessities. For example, you don't have this thing over here, but back in the home, you would go knock on someone's door. Do you have some sugar? Can I borrow some of this? Can I borrow some of that? They would be coming in. Prophet said, Allah said in this particular ayah of Surah Ahzab 54, that make sure that you ask behind a curtain. Don't walk in when there are ladies in the house. And so in this tradition which I was quoting, Prophet comes to Janab Sayyida's house, knocks on the door and says, Salamun alaikum. She replied by saying, Alaikum as-salam. Prophet then said, do I have the permission to enter? Look at the etiquette the Prophet is showing. He's going to his daughter's house. Do I have the permission to enter? She said, yes, O father, please enter. Then he said, I have a guest with me. Does he also have the permission to enter? She replied, please wait while I wear my hijab, because for someone else, I will have to cover myself. Prophet then sought permission once again, and then they entered the house. Prophet entered the house with Jabir ibn Abdullah. And so just showing that he is going to his daughter's house, he's showing this protocol that must be followed when you enter. With all these examples that Prophet has set, we still see that the house of Janab Sayyida was violated not too long after the wafat of Rasulullah. The same house upon which Prophet is knocking and seeking permission over and over is the similar door, same door, which was knocked down, which was burned away, and which resulted in the shahadat of Prophet's grandson, Mohsen, who was an unborn child. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the tawfiq to be able to follow these commands from Quran and learn from the examples of Ma'asumin alayhi salatu wasalam. Allah hasten the zuhur of our waiting Imam, make us among the helpers and the soldiers of Imam. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.